Good evening, all, and welcome. I'm sure we'll have a few others join us in the coming few minutes, but I wanted to start by thanking you all for joining our call tonight. I'm Missy Garlisi of the Braintree Rotary Club, and I serve the district as your membership committee chair presently, and I'm very happy to see you all here tonight. Before we begin, I must mention that tonight's session is being recorded, so if you're uncomfortable with your name being displayed or your photo, please take measures to eliminate your name or close your camera. But if you are comfortable with that, of course, we'd love to see you and know who you are. And thank you for that. So there are many who made tonight's event possible, and I'd like to thank the members of our district membership committee, in particular the district membership subcommittee, for their efforts in bringing the program together tonight. Paul Corrigan, who chaired our event tonight, Kevin McGovern, who I know is on the call, Zach Wittenberg, and a very special thank you to our 7950 Public Image Chair, Art Norwalk. Art, thank you so much for all of your help in distributing the invitation and the technology assistance. Without you, this would not have happened tonight. Our other membership committee members are likely here on the call tonight, and we have Joe Small, Elena Shuck, and Jennifer Vincent, and thank you all again for your service to our district. I'd like to acknowledge our leadership of governors who are with us tonight. District Governor nominee David Sampson, District Governor-elect Billy Roberts, my mentor, my predecessor, and of course, District Governor Charlene Jarrest. And we have with us tonight as well our esteemed RI Zone 32 coordinator, Melissa Ward and Kate Sims, and our featured guest speakers and presenters tonight who are both integral to growth and membership endeavors in our zone. We have Zone 24 and 32 Governor's Trainer Marty Hellman from Booth Bay Harbor in Maine, and serving as an assistant Rotary coordinator for Zone 32, and past District Governor Herb Klotz from Allentown West in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So thank you to all of those who I've acknowledged. Thank you so much for joining the call tonight. It means the world to me. At this time, I will introduce for a few words our 7950 District Governor, Charlene Jarrest. Charlene, take it away.
Always. Thank you very much, Missy. I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you for your interest in this. As we know, membership and membership development is absolutely critical to our future success. And I do appreciate you being here. I also want to express my sincere appreciation to the membership committee. Fine, hardworking people. This is not the only thing they do. They work all year, and thank you very, very much for that. And very ably led by Missy Garlisi. Missy, you're a pleasure to work with. I really enjoy it. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that I've had the pleasure of sitting in class with Marty as my instructor a couple of times, and you're in for a treat. I enjoyed being in her classes, and I have recently gotten to know Herb Klotz through this kind of membership concern, and he's been a joy too. So I heartily endorse everything that you're going to hear tonight, and it's going to be a fun, quick evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Charlene, so very much. Thanks for joining us and for always inspiring our group here in 7950, and for spending your time with us tonight. So we have an aggressive agenda tonight. There's a lot to cover, and we're so glad that you've joined us for the session. Tonight, we're going to be providing a forum for two things. First, to share ideas for membership growth and retention, specifically during the pandemic. And second, the opportunity to discuss ideas for possible satellites or other innovative clubs that might work in your area, or maybe even in your own home club. I have two interactive breakout sessions for you tonight, and our presenters, Herb and Marty, are presenting 4 topics to us tonight, and they will actually run the agenda. So first will be the case for growth. We'll move on second to potential obstacles. The third, we'll have approaches to grow your club, and last, new club innovation ideas. So I will now call on our presenters to take the program into action tonight, Marty Hellman and Herb Klotz. Thank you, Herb and Marty.
Okay, thank you very much, Missy. Okay, let me get this set up. All right, so let's grow Rotary. A few logistics for tonight. If you have questions, please ask them in the chat box. We will answer them at the end. We're also going to ask you to use the chat box. You're going to be breaking into two times into small groups, and when we come back from the breakout sessions, we're going to ask you to put your best ideas in the chat box to share across the group. And then we recommend you set your Zoom to speaker view, and I think everybody's muted, so I think we're all set on that. So as we get started here, here's a few questions to ask yourself as we're going through this presentation today. Number one, is it possible to be a great Rotarian but lousy at meeting attendance? Well, I certainly know what the answer was 10 or 15 years ago, but what's the answer today? And second, do you believe that that people should learn to fit Rotary, or should Rotary change to fit the 21st century demographics and culture? And finally, what has COVID-19 taught us about Rotary Online? And what will Rotary look like after social distancing is over? And I promise you, this is the last slide that I'm going to read. In fact, the next slide I'm even going to skip, because Missy gave you what our agenda is going to be today. And Marty and I are each going to take two of these 4 topics. So the first topic on here is the case for growth. Now, my background is I'm an engineer by training, and I love data. I'm always looking at data. And a few months back, we put this slide together to show what's been happening in our districts, in our zone. So for those of you who don't know what our zone is, it's essentially the Northeast United States, from Eastern Pennsylvania all the way up to Maine. And we have 22 districts in our zone. So basically what this shows you the history of net membership changes in our districts over the past 4 years. And as you can see, it's really not a good story here. There are lots of opportunities. Now, I will point out that there has been one district that has grown, and actually that's our district, District 7430. And I'm going to talk to you about why that's happened as an introduction for this case for growth. Now, for your district, 7950, over the past 3 years, the average net membership loss per year has been about 62 members per year. Now, this is all pre-pandemic, and I'm sorry to say, over the first 6 months, it was minus 76. Your average annual attrition rate in your district is 15%. And that's a little bit above the average in our zone. And the average annual attraction rate has been about 12%. So you can see what's been happening is the attrition rate has been higher than the attraction rate. But there is hope, and this is the last negative slide that I'm going to show, I promise. We're going to focus on what actions can we take to grow our clubs. But before I do that, what I want to talk about is what had worked for our district over the past 4 years in growing Rotary membership. And there's 3 parts to this strategy. Now, the first part is about consistent district leadership with membership goals and actions over multiple years. Now, we're not set up for that. We have a challenge. every year we change our leadership. But membership needs a consistent set of goals year after year, because these changes don't happen overnight. These changes happen over a period of years. But we're going to spend most of our time tonight talking about these last two actions in the strategy. And that's about vibrant traditional clubs and developing new models for clubs. And in specific, we're going to spend most of our time tonight, or actually Marty's going to spend most of the time talking about this topic, on satellite clubs, because if you really want to grow your club, satellite clubs are a great way to do that. And there's lots of ideas and lots of opportunities for that. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Marty.
Thank you, Herb. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting us. Missy, it's been terrific. Charlene, thank you. Art, you've been great. And everybody else in the committee. So yeah, we're all here because we're interested in growing Rotary, and because the traditional ways aren't working. And that's just the reality. Rotary is stagnating across North America. I don't think that's a secret. Rotarians are getting older, except on this phone call, of course. We're not increasing in diversity. And in fact, more than half of all new members who join Rotary leave with it by the end of the second year. You can think about that in terms of your own club, whether or not you think that's true or not. So, you know, we do all this work to get people to join Rotary, and then 50% of them are gone at the end of the second year. So there's something that's going on that's wrong. And in fact, our membership on the Rotary Board of Directors is based on population. It's somewhat like the U.S. House of Representatives. And in North America, we've lost 40% of our representatives on the Board of Directors in the past 10 years. So something is very, very wrong here. But we're also having trouble starting new clubs. And the reason is this guy is a member of my club. He sits at the gray-haired guy's table. And he may also, a cousin of his may be a member of your club, I don't know. But potential obstacles to starting new clubs or new satellite clubs, which is an offshoot of your own club, can be active sabotage from nearby clubs and from club members. The concern that many of these people have is that potential new members will cannibalize an existing club. The concern that a new club in the community will dilute the brand. Well, a little facts can always help here. Can you change the slide, Herb? Little facts can always help here, and Rotary has data that shows that starting a new club in the community will absolutely not cannibalize from the existing club, and in fact will actually strengthen Rotary in the community. Andy Glazier from my district happens to be on this call, and he's a living proof of this, because a new club started in his community and both clubs grew. And the reason for that is very simple. The reason for that is because basically if you're a Tuesday breakfast club, you've probably got everybody in the community who's interested in Tuesday breakfast. They like your club, they like the feeling of your club, they like the culture of your club. Club starting across town isn't going to interest them, even if it's a slightly less expensive club. But if they've tried your club and they don't like it, for whatever the reason is, then maybe we can catch them and make them Rotarians at that new club or that new satellite across town. Can we have the next slide, please, Herb? So yes, we can build goals that say, ask one, join one, ask one, everyone, when we should do this. But we've been doing it for a generation. We've been doing it as long as I've been a Rotarian, which is since from 2003. And I think we've been, maybe people on this, I assume there are people on this call that have been on Rotarians longer than that. But again, it hasn't been working. And the reality check, Herb just explained to you that your attrition rate is 15%. So it's even worse than this statistic. If you're losing 15% of your members per year, then you've got to get 16% just to break even. Okay, next slide. Now, what about fellowship? you know, a lot of the clubs that get started turn out to be electronic clubs, and we're all in electronic clubs now. What about fellowship? I truly believe that Rotary is a contact sport, and I've heard all of these reasons why clubs are losing out. It's because they're eliminating attendance. It's because they've gone from weekly meetings to every other weekly meetings. It's because, and I agree with most of these statements. I absolutely agree with the last one, that a failing club that meets less often is still a failing club. It's probably a failing club with a communications issue. But the reality is that there are other ways to communicate besides getting together, and that those of us who are members of traditional clubs that get together every week or every other week, we're the lucky ones. You know, we can afford to do that, afford in time and in the cost of the meeting, but not everyone can, and not everyone can who'd make great Rotarians. So when you think about your own club and you think about the clubs in your area, next slide, please. You need to think about how attractive that club is. Are your traditions welcoming and appreciated by newcomers? How do you know? There's a club in my area that has this song that they sing whenever, every week, in which they welcome new members, and they go around, physically get up from the tables, walk around and shake hands of everybody while they're singing the song and welcoming new members. They think it's wonderful. As a new person to that club, I can tell you it's scary having total strangers get up and grab your hand and try to shake it when you're just sitting there trying to mind your own business. I've said this to them. A lot of people say this to them. Yeah, they know, but yeah, we know, but we like the song. It was written by a member who's a long time. It's important to us. Well, okay, but it's turning off their membership. It's turning off new people from joining their membership. So you may like your tradition, but you need to, you know, we all need to think about some of these traditions and think about how they really reflect with others. And of course, the questions to always ask are, does your membership look like your community? And if not, why not? Answers such as young people don't like service don't really make it. Those are excuses, not reasons. I've also been to clubs where they know the food is lousy, but they're willing to put up with it, and they're surprised that other people aren't. So these are all ways to think about the attractiveness of your own club. And if you don't know, you know, invite your neighbor or your spouse to come to a club meeting and check it out. Ask them what they thought of how attractive the club was. And then here's the hard part. Listen to what they have to say. Don't rationalize, but actually do something about it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this one is back to you, Herb.
All right, so back to me. So what we'd like to do next is to talk to you a little bit about ideas, approaches to grow your Rotary Club. But before I do that, I just want to re-emphasize what Marty just went through. Is your club attractive? That's step one or step zero in the process. What I'm going to share with you next, none of this will work if your club is not attractive. So keep that in mind as we think about our clubs. And our clubs are a lot different now because of COVID-19. So okay, let me get into the growth study a little bit here. Basically, what we did was 2 years ago, we did a growth study of 3 Pennsylvania districts, 3 Eastern Pennsylvania districts. And what we did was we focused on looking at clubs that had grown in a given Rotary year and did not lose the membership in the following year. So we were only focused on the bright spots in these 3 districts. And the criteria that we used for this study was, did they have and it was different for small, medium, and large clubs. If it was a small club, we needed a greater than 3 net growth. If it was a large club, we needed a greater than 5 net growth. And of course, if that large club grew by 5 and then the next year dropped those 5. We didn't include them in the study because somebody was playing games with the membership. And what we did then was we sent out a 10-question survey to 57 past presidents. So we asked the person who was the president during the year that that club grew. So we didn't ask the current president, we asked whoever was the president when that club grew. Now this turns out to be about 7% of all the possibilities. And oh, by the way, we went back 5 years with this study. So it was recent data, it was data locally, in this case in Eastern Pennsylvania, but I'm sure a lot of the things I'm going to share with you, you'll say, yeah, that makes sense for your district as well. And then we received back from those 57 past presidents, 44 of them responded to the survey. So we had a 77% response rate. Now, anybody who does surveys, you know, you'd kill for a 77% response rate. That is incredible. But if you think about it, maybe it's not so incredible. These past presidents were proud of what happened during the year that they were club president. And they were more than happy to tell me about what had happened during their year. And we asked open-ended questions. We didn't ask specific multiple choice. We just said, tell us what you think were the 3 most important reasons. That was sort of the first part of the survey. And then what we did was we aggregated their responses and looked for common themes. And what we found was we found 5 common themes for these clubs that had grown. And these were the 5 themes. First of all, a clear membership goals and a plan. Second, strong public image and social media. Third, purposeful membership recruiting events, including mixers. Fourth, an alternate meeting or satellite club. And the 5th was flexibility. Now I'm going to go through each one of those in more detail. Actually, I'm going to go through 4 out of the 5 of those. Marty's going to cover the alternative meeting or satellite club. But before we get into that, I want to share one more thing about this study. We also looked at what I called clubs with significant growth in a given year. And we define that as greater than 10 net increase in a given year. And this was about 2% of the sample. So it was about the top 2% in growth. And what we found when we looked at that was even more striking. 90% of those clubs added an alternative meeting or a satellite club. 90% of them had a focused social media and marketing campaign. And 90% of them held recruiting events or membership drives. And the other thing that was interesting about clubs in this category was that most of them added 10+ members in consecutive years. It didn't just happen one year, it built on itself, and they did it again the next year. In fact, there was one club, the Doylestown Club, that did it 3 years in a row. It just became a culture of growth in these clubs. So let's go through each of these 5 areas. So the first one is starting with a goal and a plan. Now, is a goal necessary? Absolutely. A goal is necessary. And usually, in fact, almost always, this comes from the club president making membership a top priority in their club, okay? One of the things that I did find when I went through this survey, when I asked club presidents what priority they placed on membership, it was always at the top. You know, either the top 1 or the top 2 or 3 priorities when I was president. But that's not enough. Of course, we need a plan. We're not going to go through a detailed plan tonight, but rest assured, strong leadership makes a huge difference in terms of membership growth in a club. And I hope I have some club presidents on this call or presidents-elect, because I'm talking to you. This is a real important step if your club is actually going to grow. Number 2, strong public image and social media presence. Your club needs to be seen as a positive doer in your community. And one of the best ways to do that is through active social media. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Percy Club in our district. This was a small but mighty club. They had 13 members in their club. And we were never worried. I mean, as district leadership, we were never worried because they were very, very active in their community. But what they weren't doing was they weren't showing the community what they were doing. And we worked with them last year to start to build a much more active social media presence in their community. And through using the Rotary branding with these People of Action campaign slogans and putting pictures with those. And, one day, last year I was district governor, one day I see the Percy Club and it went from 13 to 18 members. I had to find out what happened. So I called up the club president and I talked to him. I said, what's happening? And he says, Herb, this social media is helping us get people in our community to know what we do. And there were younger members. And you know what? Even during the pandemic, this is our fastest growing Rotary Club in our district. They now have 24 members, and it's just built on itself. So next one, let's take a little bit of a breather here. Let's talk about attracting new members in the COVID-19 world. And, what have we learned from Zoom meetings? Well, it's awesome to invite speakers from anywhere. I can tell you that Marty and I would likely not be talking with you tonight if it hadn't been for this transformational change with Zoom. And I know, and I speak for myself, I'm on these types of calls pretty regularly now with all places all over of the Northeast United States. So we can do that. And our club has been doing it. And one of the clubs in our district, the Bethlehem Club, has really taken advantage of this. And we were, quite frankly, worried about the Bethlehem Club because it was let's just say it was a seasoned club. How's that? And very traditional. And it's been growing. And it's because they've taken advantage of Zoom and they're inviting really great speakers from all over the United States to speak at their clubs. And so that's another club in our district that's growing right now. Obviously, it's possible to meet without a meal. Your fellowship can take place at a club service project. And as long as you've got an attractive Zoom meeting, you should consider inviting guests to that, because it's easy to invite guests to a Zoom meeting. Next, I want to talk a little bit about mixers. Now, this is probably something, or networking events, if that's what you like to call them. But we've found that now this is probably something that's going to happen after COVID, although I've got one club now that's going to try to do online business networking events. We'll see how it works. But this club that I'm going to mention is absolutely outstanding. It's the Pottstown Rotary Club. They have 2 times a year before the pandemic, they would have a business mixer, and that business mixer would attract 125 people. And again, their philosophy, and I totally agree with it, is Rotary is a soft sell. Start by building a relationship. Most of these people aren't going to join Rotary the first time they come to your networking events, but they'll come back over and over again. And typically the Pottstown Club adds 5 to 10 new members from these business networking events twice a year. So last topic I want to cover before we go into our breakout is flexibility. Now, I suspect most of you have already started to look at flexibility in your clubs. I mean, this has been around now for 3 or 4 years, and ever since the Council on Legislation in 2016. And so we've got the capability to set up alternate membership types and dues structures. Many of these can be for related to, reduced dues for certain classes of people, for example, young professionals or family or senior or service members. I'll jump in. Marty knows I'm going to jump in a little later and talk about that. And then, of course, alternate meeting times and customs. That we're going to go through that after our breakout session. And again, there are clubs now that are really focused on service, not the meetings. We just started up a passport club last year in our district, and and they're absolutely focused on service. In fact, they've never met face to face at this point, even though they're in the same community, but they meet at their service projects. And again, focusing on engagement versus attendance.
In the chat box, there was a question about 2-year presidents and then an additional question about 2-year district governors. I'd like to say that 2-year terms of office are a great idea. And of course, it depends upon who the incumbent is. I know a small club in my district that had a multi-year growth strategy. And as part of that strategy, well, they'd been trading off being president anyway. So they were that small. So they got together and they chose the next 3 presidents who would be president 2 years apiece. And they figured by that time they would have grown the club. And by hard work and planning, that's exactly what happened. And they're now back to 1-year terms. I also know a club that nobody would step up to be president. So the current incumbent said, well, he'd do it for a 2nd year. And that's sort of was his attitude. Well, he'd do it for a 2nd year. And that's sort of how his expectations, and that's what the results were. He did it for a 2nd year. So it was not thrilling. It was not exciting. He probably was the wrong person to be there that long. So the answer is it's a tool. It's not a solution. And if it works for your club with the right people, then God bless you. As for the 2-year district governor, I think you'd have to ask the district governors what they think of that idea. My personal opinion is at the end of those 12 months with all the about 36 months of planning, if you're not totally exhausted, you probably haven't been doing it right. So anyway, we've got some other.
I agree with Marty. I agree with Marty.
Charlene agrees with Marty. Yeah.
Yeah, Herb agrees with Marty too.
We've got some great ideas in here. Sharon says we recruited members of the community to help build a playground. 2 of the people stepped forth and became new members. Sharon, that is so wise. I know so many people that when they want to promote Rotary, they say, come to a meeting, come to a meeting. Well, you know what? We don't join Rotary to go to meetings, right? Again, meetings are the means to the end. We join Rotary to do service. So don't bring them to a meeting, bring them to the service project. Or if you have a really fun fundraiser, bring them to the fundraiser and have them flip burgers. And by the time they've gone to a meeting, they'll know several people. And meanwhile, they've seen Rotary doing what it is Rotary does, so that's good for you, Sharon.
Yeah.
We've got Victor says videos and pics pushed out through Facebook and Instagram, fellowship and service events. Ditto. Using social media of pictures, not of people gripping and grinning, but actually doing work and having fun. Diane says, reach out to new members, reach out to leaders of other organizations to see what the community needs. Rotary is big on community assessments, and anytime that Rotary works with the food pantry or the grammar school or whatever it is and does works in tandem, it's always a good thing. ask those who attend your service projects and fundraising to a meeting, Missy says. So yeah, absolutely. Get them to the fundraiser or the service project
Yep.
first. So those are all terrific ideas. And of course, the point of the breakouts and the point of sharing is that, Herb and I can talk until the cows come home, but the ideas have to come from you. So Herb, shall we share
Sure.
screen again?
All right. Yep. Yeah. The one other thing I wanted to add about the first question about the 2-year, and maybe Marty, you touched on this. At the beginning, we talked about, membership takes multiple years to grow. So if you've got the right president in there for multiple years, that can really have a positive impact. All right, back to the slides.
So when last we spoke, Herb left you with the idea of innovation, and I want to talk just a little bit about why we need innovative clubs. There we go. We needed innovative clubs before the pandemic, but of course, we've all learned about innovation because of the pandemic. And I think we'd be in a much different place if we weren't learning that you can have meetings on Zoom. So thank you, Jeffrey, for that. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do we need new kinds of clubs? Well, again, we have data, and the data show that the biggest reasons Rotarians drop out of their club or never join are time and money. And it's really popular to bash dues at this point. So if you think about it, I don't know what your district dues are. I know what your international dues are. It's $68. And with your district dues, it's probably up to $125 or $130 dollars per person per year. And yet, and then of course you've got club dues on top of that. If you ask people what it costs to be a Rotarian, they will multiply that $130 figure by 10 or even by 20. So why does it cost all this money, $1,200 or $1,800 or $2,500 to be a Rotarian, when your district and international dues are probably around $125 or $130 annually? And the answer, of course, is the cost of the breakfast or the lunch that you're having at your meal. Even if it's a $14 breakfast, that's $700. I'll give you a week off for Christmas and a week off for your birthday. That's $750 you spend on scrambled eggs, which is a lot more than most Rotarians give to the Rotary Foundation, and that's just the cost of that meal. And we're discovering that this year, of course, with COVID, that districts and clubs suddenly have all this money available because we're not going someplace and spending money on the place or on the location or on the food. So the reason Rotarians drop out or never join are time and money, and the money, most of it is being spent on that weekly meal, not on what it is to be a Rotarian. And that suggests that there's an opportunity for new types of clubs which don't meet around the scrambled eggs. For, again, as I said in the beginning, those of us, and I expect it's most of us on this call, who do have a club that before COVID and presumably after COVID meet over a meal, we're fortunate. We're fortunate because we can afford it. But there are an awful lot of people who would be great Rotarians, but who can't afford it. And I use afford again to mean money, but also to mean time. So who are these people? They're people who have family obligations or work schedules that don't allow them to get up in the morning, or maybe they're recently retired and they don't want to get up in the morning. They're on strict diets and don't want to have to pay for food they can't eat, or they don't like the food that's presented. They travel frequently, or they have two homes, one in the north, one in the south. They don't find the fellowship in their local club engaging. What it comes down to is people for whom the local club does not offer a good value proposition. What it comes down to is people who believe in the values of Rotary, who'd make great Rotarians, but who frankly are lousy meeting goers. And these new clubs and I'm using clubs to mean both satellites and clubs, satellites being an offshoot of the existing club. They can focus on different demographics, and that means a lot of things. They can focus on just one of our areas of service, areas of focus. So for example, We've got a new environmental area of focus coming on board. Why not a club that works primarily or only in environmental issues? Why not a club that that is for a particular demographic which is not being served by an existing club? That could be young professionals, it could be veterans, it could be people who work at the local hospital, having a meeting on Friday at lunch in the meeting room. It could also be people who feel that, well, their kids go to a different school, so even though the club is the nearest club isn't really feeding their community, well, okay, let's have a satellite club which feeds that small town. So and there are plenty other ideas for clubs that focus on different demographics that I'm sure I'm not covering here, but which you may know in your own community.
Well, I'm going to jump in here.
And Herb's going to jump in here.
Because there are lots of ideas for satellite clubs. And this picture here is actually a picture of a young professional satellite club that was chartered by a very traditional lunchtime club that met at a country club in last February, right before the pandemic. And this group of young professionals meets once a month at a bar, and they do service projects once a month. And this very traditional club has no intention of having this satellite spin off. In fact, they know that these are their future. So that's really an important step that they've taken. So that's just an example of one. Another example is service groups. We have another club in our district that only, again, another country club, dinner, very traditional Rotary club, and they created a service club with minimum dues, and these people do service with them because it's a very active club in their community, but they can't afford to go to the country club for dinner. So a couple of other ideas. All yours.
Thank you, Herb. At this point, next slide, please, Herb. At this point, there's always somebody in the audience who wants to know what the rules are for starting an innovative club. After all, we don't want the Rotary police coming down on us. We don't want, some crazy district governor getting a great idea and then getting shot down because it's against the rules. So what are the rules for starting a Rotary club? Well, in actual fact, the biggest rule is to adhere to the four-way test. The council legislation in 2016 said that a club must meet twice each month. But the council legislation and everyone else has failed to define what a meeting is. So a meeting can be a service project. A meeting can be a fundraiser. A meeting can be whatever you make of it. It can obviously be online. So the old days, again, in the old days, my club meets on Thursdays. We'd meet on Thursdays to plan and then we'd get together on Saturday morning for the project. Well, if we need the Thursday meeting to plan for the project, that's fine. But if we're meeting on Thursday because it's Thursday, and then we're meeting again on Saturday, then we don't have to have that Thursday meeting. Rotary says that members must be adults. And in North America, we've defined adult as age 18. So Rotaractors can be age 18 to early 30s. Rotarians can be age 18 on up. Actually, they're eliminating the upper limit for Rotaractors as well. So you don't have to go through Rotaract and then at age 30 become a Rotarian. And we have Rotarians in my district who are age 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. You do have to pay international dues. That's the big thing. You do have to pay district dues. And of course, whatever the club dues are. Districts can do innovative things, however. My district has eliminated district dues. District dues are zero for any Rotarian under the age of 30. And my club has eliminated dues for any Rotarian under the age of 35. Now, frankly, in both cases, it was easy to do that because it wasn't exactly going to break the budget. It wasn't like we had a lot of these young people running around. So It was an easy decision to make by the finance committees, and it's gone a long way to say to young professionals that we're serious about wanting them as members. You do need 20 members to charter a new club. A satellite offshoot requires 8 members. The important thing to remember is not the specifics. The important thing to remember is that Rotary International wants us to innovate. Rotary will be supportive of our experimentation, and Rotary is also smart enough to know that, you know, if you're going to innovate, you're going to take chances, and maybe that won't all work out, and that's okay as long as we're trying things, as long as we're doing the best we can. So any idea that you get for a club is probably worth trying out, and almost definitely fits the accepted rules. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what are the secrets of success? Well, we sat down and we worked out some things that you can't just start an innovative club in the same old soil, right? You've got to have you've got to have a relatively a district or a club that is eager for the innovation, and that means the multi-year plan. Herb has always talked about that. It means an innovative chair and an innovative committee. It means diversity. If we want diverse members, then we have to be diverse in our leadership. It means social media, and it means always talking about ways that we can improve. So that's true at the district level. It's also true at the club level.
A topic came up about eco clubs, and the Innovative Club Advocates in our zone, of which Marty and I are members, are going to be having a half-hour Zoom meeting on January 19th on that exact topic, how to start an eco club. So if that sounds like something of interest to you, I believe, I'm not sure who the do you know who the distribution was, where that invite went, Marty?
It'll be going to governors and the governor line and membership chairs, so Missy can share it with everyone. Let Missy know.
Okay. All right, so now they're coming in quite a few here. Let's see, what do we got here? The young professionals idea, cause-based clubs, environmental. I mentioned that. I'm seeing several environmental ideas here. A club for young parents. Zoom might be perfect for this. You betcha. Great idea. Great idea. Because that's something that could easily work. In a multi-ethnic community, what's the trade-off between diversity and mutual interest? Marty, you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, Art and I were talking about that in our own little group here while you were off in your groups. And you know, when does diversity, equity, inclusion stop and segregation begin? If you have a group that's interested in one particular topic, should they be part of the bigger club, or should they have their own club? And the answer is, it's what works. In New York City, there's a small club that meets in Chinatown, and it caters. It does work in China, so it caters to folks who are either Chinese nationals or American nationals, but who may have Chinese ancestry and who do work in China. And their service projects are all based in China. And I know a club in Toronto that's just gotten started recently that's made up almost entirely of Bangladeshi businessmen who obviously do a lot of service work back in their home country before they became Canadians, and who meet, by the way, on Sunday late afternoon. And that's why they got started, because the weekday lunchtime just wasn't a good time for them. But Sunday afternoon, it turned out, time when I'm frankly not available for a Rotary meeting, was a time that worked for them. So I think it's a difficult topic, a difficult conversation to have. But if if a group wants to start a satellite club that's different from the main club, and and it reaches out to a specific ethnic group or cause, I think that's probably a very positive thing.
So I'm gonna hit one or two more here. I see here satellite clubs at local hospitals for healthcare workers. We actually, there is a club, it's not a satellite, in Buffalo, which was started at a hospital for healthcare workers. So that's a great idea. We have a club in our district that's trying to start a satellite club in their school district for educators, because I can tell you, if you are an educator, you know this, the Rotary meetings aren't usually too friendly to educators, because, you know, breakfast or lunch, it's good luck trying to make that work.
If I may add, if there are old timers in the crowd who are worrying about the classification system, we no longer have to worry about that. So
Thank you.
it's okay to have more than one of, and in fact, in other countries, it's what's done. You'll have a club that's all lawyers, for example, and they do legal aid work, or all doctors and they do medical missions. So it's quite acceptable.
Okay. And I could continue down this list, but it's 8:15 and we promised that we were gonna end right around 8:15. So these ideas will be available to you. And so with that, I'm gonna hand it back to Marty, and we can close. Oops,
Well,
I didn't do what I was supposed to do, did I? I didn't really share the screen. I imagine.
well, we're just going to leave you with one more question, and that is that we're all now in social distancing. We're all meeting via Zoom, and the day is going to come, believe it or not, when we're going to go back to our so-called regular meetings. And so the question we want to leave you with is, which of the clubs that your club has adopted during the last 6 months will it retain when social distancing is over? What have you learned that actually works? And we leave you with that, and to let you know that yes, these slides will be available to you. We are available to answer questions, and Missy can talk about follow-on opportunities. Thank you, Missy.
Thank you guys for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you, Herb. Your content tonight is so relevant and something that I think all of us really need to consider as we take this information back to our home clubs. As Marty and Herb mentioned, the content of tonight will be available to you in the coming days or even weeks. Art Norwalk and I will work on getting that distributed. I'm always available to answer your questions and to talk with you as individuals or your clubs about membership, as are all of our committee members. And Herb and Marty, thank you for offering your time, not only tonight, but offering to all of our 7950 members and our other district guests to contact you if and how and as needed. So thank you for that. I'd like to call on our district governor-elect, Billy Roberts, just for some closing remarks. Billy Roberts, are you out there, my friend? Let's see.
I'm busy talking, but I was on mute. Sorry. So,
No
friends,
worries.
so I'm a big fan of the membership committee. So Missy and the committee members, thank you very much for a wonderful program. Marty and Herb, really, thank you for stimulating us and for providing a context for change, and also presenting concrete examples of innovation. I think really your presentation is very stimulating, very helpful. And I think we need more of your sort of, your encouragement, if you will, a little more shoving really to help us really move out of our, sort of comfort zones. I love this last question, which is, what is it that we've learned during this last period that we'll take with us into the future? Our club has already talked about it, I'm happy to say. And so just as an example, our little club has decided that when we get back to meeting in person, half of the time we're going to do it in person and half the time still online, because it really works for a lot of people. So it's a good thing to think, to get us thinking in this way. So I just want to say thank you very much. A wonderful, wonderful evening. And I'll just add another word that our district governor, Charlene, has said in the chat. It's a wonderful program. She loved it. So thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Thanks for addressing our group and for always being so motivational and inspiring me as well as everyone else. And to reiterate, Billy, what you said, that's what I'll take back to my club as well. You know, what has my home club done, COVID, you know, to adapt and change? What has worked really well? What will we be retaining moving forward? That remains to be seen from my home club. I would ask you all to think about and really take to heart what you heard tonight. There are so many things that our district clubs do that are really fabulous. You know, whether we are a club in the district of, you know, 10 people or as many as 75 people, all of our clubs do great work and should be very proud of the work that we do and how we serve our communities. What are we doing well in our home clubs? What are you doing well in your home club that you're really proud of? How is your club interacting with the community? And who are these people in the community who are showing up to either your fundraisers or your service projects? If those people are interested in what Rotary does and what your club does, those are Rotarians in disguise. Those are people who don't know that they're really Rotarians. Maybe you haven't noticed them yet. So I would encourage you to take a look at who they are. And if they can't make your, you know, your breakfast meeting on a Tuesday or your Zoom meeting for lunch on a Thursday, or the traditional way that you've met in the past or are meeting now, I encourage your clubs to think about creating an avenue for those people to serve. Anyone who is interested in community service and participating in our fundraisers and our service projects, those are Rotarians in disguise. And if we were able to engage them and, you know, bring them into the fold and make them Rotarian outside of having to attend our regular forums, then that's more work that gets done in the community to the benefit of the community and to the benefit of Rotary's work worldwide. So think about those things. And as has been said, we will share the content with you. We'll figure out how to get that to you. My name and my email address were in tonight's invitation, so you know how to contact me. Please do. I'm happy to communicate with you about membership at any time. And we are discussing a future date for March. It will be either a Tuesday night or a Thursday in March, maybe like a follow-up to this in a session 2, maybe a different topic. So be on the lookout for that. And again, I want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I hope you found the call fun, inspirational, constructive, worth your time. I thank you all for the service that you provide to your communities, the service to your home clubs, to our local and districts afar, and for all the work that you do for Rotary worldwide.